Bonji Vacorja. Hello, everybody. Eimear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 197, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I begin with a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiakon or Fudna Krinya. Gamara Shiakon in our Jaili, agus in our Jirha. Ganairi Lin, Lena Kij Garmaka. Gamwich Buikus Jeev, Jeha, Chivdaka is Spirit Chivdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities, for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. For those who make riches from violent and war, might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost, and that we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. And that those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, and our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let me see where you're all from. Hello from Denmark. Oh, it's freezing up in Ulster. It's wet and damp where I am. So, Carla from Northern Italy, lovely. Where are people from? London, yes, and Wyoming, and the Vale of Glamorgan in South Wales. Cloudy, Wisconsin. Peace, absolutely peace. County Sligo. Hi, Leslie and Kevin. And I know Lloyd is there up early, New Zealand and other parts of England. So it's just lovely to see you all. And Arizona, lovely. Windsor. We have glorious Bristol, beautiful. Where else? Oh, Morocco. Hi, Jens, lovely. And Hertfordshire, Germany, British Columbia and Canada. There's Calgary. So anyway, lovely to see you all. So South Wales. So this evening we are going to Canada. And I'd like to introduce my guest, Phil Naylor. Phil, you're really, really welcome to this Fireside Chat. So so we've got people from Dorset, Mildish, Slough, Weymouth, Dorset, Arlington, and the US. I think VA, I assume that's Virginia. So tell us where you are.
I'm in, but first of all, that was a beautiful opening. I love that poem. So appropriate to right now,
Absolutely.
We need peace and peacemakers for sure. So I'm in Southern Ontario in Canada, and which is sort of the more southerly part of, I guess, Canada. It kind of dips in between the Great Lakes.
Okay.
And so right now I'm in my office in Guelph. Guelph is the royal city. It's where I grew up, actually, but I don't live here anymore. But it was named after the last name of, I think it was King George back in 1827 when the thing was founded. So he was from the Guelph family, which I think is German. And so, so we're called the royal city anyway. And one time the Queen came by and waved. But are you there? I don't know. You kind of froze up. Okay. And but I live further north, about an hour north of where I am. I live out in the country.
And you have frozen.
Pardon me? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
No, keep going.
Okay. Yeah, about an hour north. I'm lucky enough to live. I live out in the country. I have a house with 70 acres. So that's nice. Near a town called Mount Forest, which is about an hour north of where I am. So that's where I am.
That sounds so. Mount Forest. That sounds lovely. And Jade has been to Guelph years ago. So, and I know Lloyd tells me I'm freezing. And am I freezing now?
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit. I can never tell if it's your end or my end.
I know,
Yeah.
and we're both. It's a pity. I'm sorry about this. I'm on a hotspot, and you're on a hotspot. So I was just saying, I shouldn't have said it.
We're hot.
That hotspots, I find a hotspot reliable. I shouldn't have said it. I spoke
Shouldn't
too
have said
soon.
it.
Anyway, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, where do I start? Well, I grew up in Guelph. Son of my parents immigrated from England after the war. So I was the only one born in Canada. My brother and sister were born in England. And okay, what parts do you want to know? You don't want to know all the details of my growing up, but how I found Druidry, maybe. I don't know what you. So I grew up. Okay, so I grew up here until about in my early 20s. I moved to Calgary, out west, for a while, and stayed there and stayed in a little town south of there called High River. So I was there for a couple of years until I came back.
I know High River.
You know High River? You've been there or seen it?
I was there last June with Jane Meyer. She invited me over for to the Obot camp. So she lives in High River. So I went into the town of High River. She's a few miles outside, on a bit of land with animals and donkeys and
near High River?
Horse and sheep and goats. Yeah. Oh, this is disappointing.
So
apologies for this.
Yeah, that's okay. So you were there where I was, so you know where I lived then. Roughly, it's a little town. It's not very big. So anyway,
it's not usual.
I don't know if people can hear or see me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Are you hearing me? Okay, Eimear? I don't know if you're. I can't tell if anybody's
Keep going, Phil. I can hear you.
You're frozen. Okay. So well, along the way, I went back to Guelph, and I ended up going. There's a university here, University of Guelph. So I went back to university there and studied psychology. Got my undergrad and specialized honors in psychology, and then I went on for applied social psychology for my master's. So, and then I got into, roundabout ways, I got into the mental health field and worked in the kind of mental health system since 2003 or 2000. Then I went into private practice and been in private practice on my own since 2014. So, which I've enjoyed a lot better than being in the system. So I got into OBOD, I think it was around 1999 or 2000 is when I joined the order. And so I'm an old veteran, I guess, of OBOD. And I used to like getting those little mail packages. I was surprised that you don't have those anymore, where you get the mail out every month, right? So that was so things have really developed. But you treasure going to the mailbox that every month to get your 4 packages. It was like magical to have those 4 packages, and to work through that, through the lessons that were there. So.
Yeah, it's I did the physical one, getting the brown envelopes every month, and that's still an option, but so many people go with the online one, and there's nothing. And people talk about this, going to the mailbox, getting the brown envelope, and the excitement of opening and seeing what it is there that you don't when you click on the next lesson online. I just think beautiful, absolutely lovely. So I'm interested, how did you find OBOD? Oh, going back in the day when I don't know, was there even a website? I joined in 2003. So you joined 99, 2000. Did we even have a website then? How did you find it?
You must have had a website. some sort of website, I guess. I don't really remember how I actually physically connected with OBOD, or if I had to send in a mail. Like, I think it must have emailed or something, right? So how I found Druidry in general, well, that was a bit of a process, I guess. I guess like most people, you're just raised in the normal Christian environment. And I was always interested in spirituality ever since I was a kid, spirituality and psychology. So, and I'm oriented towards Jungian psychology because that was very spiritual, I thought, as well, you know. So, so I was attracted to those things. So it's always been something in my mind, but the regular Christianity never really kind of quite clicked, even though when I had a young family, we went to church regularly. I was on the church council in the Lutheran church here, and it was fine, but it was like, yeah, politics, you know, is all that involved. And we always found my wife Cindy and I, we really are on the same wavelength in terms of, you know, the importance of nature. So we always connected with the nature part, and that's where we always found what I was drawn. There's something about nature that I needed, and that was even from when I was a kid. I always remember I was really fascinated with fishing when I was a kid. I was like fishing crazy, and I used to watch this show, a TV show. It was called the Red Fisher Show, and this guy would fly out to these northern lakes in Ontario, and they had these fishing trips, right? And he was had a shore lunch, frying up the fish that he cooked that. But at the end, you know, he showed this landscape and says, that's my church. He would say, there's my church here. And I would go, yeah, you know, that feels like my church too. You know, so I always resonated with that. So I was, and even anything, we used to go out, my wife and I, you know, on Sundays and just find a place in the woods, and we just drink a little bit of wine from a chalice and some bread and just enjoy that kind of nature. It wasn't really formal communion. It was just kind of I don't know, just a way of connecting with spirit, I guess, you know. And so I was going on a little bit of a search, and I was a little bit fascinated with Wicca. I got, you know, and it was hard to find really, you know, where you could connect and do places. And I saw on a talk show in Neo-Pagans, and it was several years ago, prior to that. And that always sort of fascinated me. So I went on a search. I started reading, but Wicca didn't quite do it for me. I was fascinated with parts of it, and other parts were a little bit too polytheistic, maybe, I don't know, or ritualistic. I'm not sure. But anyway, I came across a book, and some people are going to boo and hiss or something. But the thing that really led me to Druidry is I bought a book called The 21 Lessons of Merlin by, do you know him? Douglas Munro. And so he was, it was a popular book back in the day, and I guess I'd started to connect with a little bit of other, you know, the ADF and things like explore them or being on some sort of chat line. So, but anyway, everybody hated this book. And it was like, this is the first kind of, you know, cancel culture moment that I'd encountered. It's like, don't read this book. This is terrible, you know? And it's because they say it was misogynistic and all this. And I never really found it that way, but it was, you know, it's garbage and it's all made up. And this guy claimed, you know, this is authentic Druidry, and all the other Druids are like fake Druids and all this, you know, it got people's ire up, I guess. But it was written in a way, it was written in a very bardic style, because it was chapters that were dedicated. It was supposed to be the apprenticing of young King Arthur by Merlin. And so, and it started off with Merlin and the thing of Tintagel, and he gets to meet up with, Arthur and Tintagel, and Merlin meets up with him, and they have these sort of little adventures, and he was teaching him Druidry through these lessons. And so they'd have this little tale, and then he'd have, at the end of it, there was a practical thing on some sort of magical process that you do. But yeah, you know, parts of it was, you know, you could argue, you know, there was parts of it that, you know, weren't right or doesn't resonate with me, or, you know, it was like, yeah, that's bullshit or whatever. But it was, it drew you in terms of it created a magical world, I suppose. And so everybody boo hissed and, you know, don't ever read Douglas Munro. It's a terrible book. but I still like it. I still enjoy, still read it once in a while and still get something out of it. But that was what kind of led me to seek out. And I finally found OBOD, and I liked, what it was about. And I sent off for a little introductory package and everything. And then kind of the rest is history. So I got involved that way. And there's kind of an interwoven story in that as well, because after I got involved in OBOD, I connected, I went to one or two gatherings down in the States. I'm not too far from the border. I think Guelph is about 2 hours from the American border. I'm about 3 hours where I live now. But so there was a place down in upstate, in New York State. It was only probably about an hour over the border. So I went down there for a gathering, and they were offering initiations, and I was due for my ovate initiation. Mm-hmm. So I was going to have my ovate initiation there. And anyway, it turns out that some OBOD member had acquired the property of Douglas Munro. Like, he had this thing, he said, New Forest Center, it was called, that he had established this center down there of Druidry. And some reason he hightailed it out of there, apparently went to Mexico or something. But anyway, acquired this property. And that's where they took us to do the ovate initiation. So went there. It was like kind of like a cottage thing, but it had, New Forest Center on there and all this stuff. And everybody has had tales about how poorly he had treated the property. But it was set in amongst a lot of old hemlock trees and all of that. And so they really did a good job, because they made like a candlelit pathway down to the initiation spot and candles all around. It was all, and then, and after the initiation, when we drove back, was a distance from the camp. It was like, I remember coming out and looking over the fields, and it was all full of fireflies. And it was a starry night. So you had all this sky full of stars, and all these fireflies at the bottom. It was like, that was an incredible experience. So I still had that connection with the 21 Lessons of Merlin thing at the New Forest Center when I had my ovate initiation. So.
Well, I think it's interesting how you find a key, and it may not be the perfect key. It may be more rusty than golden, for example, mm-hmm. But it opens a door for you to find, so be it. I mean, there's a few comments here, that says, read it by all means, just don't believe it unless, just don't take it as gospel. And I think it's really, really important.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody does. I mean, a lot of the stuff in Druidry is kind of made up, like Morgan, what's his name? Morgan Ilio, what's his name? He did the Bardus.
Yeller.
He made it up, right? It was a forgery. And even Christopher Hughes, he says, we make a lot of this shit up. So, but it works, I'd say it's inspired, right? That's how I look in. And even some of these they're inspired things. So there's a spark of something in there. There's a spark of magic or something that you latch onto. So it doesn't have to be literally true, but it may be metaphorically true, or it's magically true or something, so you follow those paths.
Absolutely. And Yolo McGannock, for example, was an enthusiast, and he wanted all this to be true, and bless him, he made it up. But the Druid's prayer is his prayer. And my God, you can't argue with that, a prayer. So mm-hmm. The thing is, if you're talking about main religions, the revealed ones, who's to say that God did speak to Moses up on the hill when he came down with the tablets? Who knows? He says, he tells you he did. He told me mm-hmm. X, Y, Z. But the important thing is, within Druidry, is that we don't have dogma. So it's, this is something you might like to explore or think or reflect on for yourself. And it's interesting. My head is gone. Ronald Hutton. He talks about stuff. He'll say, I remember we were at a conference on Samhain in Cork, in the University in Cork, a number of years ago. And he gave an excellent talk. And
Oh,
he was
sorry, who
talking
was
about
this? I missed you.
Ronald,
You glitched out when.
okay, Ronald Hutton.
Oh, Ronald Hutton, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a member of the order. He's an
Yeah, I've heard him
academic
speak, yes.
historian, and so he was giving an excellent talk on Samhain and on the so-called Celtic traditions, and he went back through. I mean, obviously, he's rigorous in terms of his research, and he said there's no evidence that Samhain, for example, is the Celtic New Year. That I think James Fraser, who wrote was it the Golden Bough or the Silver Bough? I get my metals mixed up. He found somebody else that said, and people
I've lost you there,
without
Eimear.
actually finding the research themselves. But he says there is no evidence that. Okay, I'm back. Can you see me now?
Yeah, come and go.
Have you got me?
Yeah,
Okay,
now.
I'm sorry about this. So he says just because there's no evidence that Samhain is not the Celtic New Year, that you just don't say it's ancient. And the important thing is you can do it now. Now, Ishfaq asked the question, when dogma, I'm talking about dogma, I'm talking about doctrine. I don't know what the difference between doctrine and dogma is. Well, dogma is almost like this is the way, this is the truth. And within Oba, we don't have any dogma. And I say, if you're looking for dogma, you're on the wrong bus. You're not going to get it here. And I think it's really, really important not to confuse beliefs with facts. I tell stories and I tell them like they're true. They're not factual, but there are truths in them that you can resonate with and hear. So, I mean, Ronald would say it doesn't have to be ancient for it to work, because for me, we don't know how our ancient, our Druidic ancestors, they never wrote anything down, but Druidry today is an organic spiritual path that's organic, and it develops and grows, with a relevance to the times we live in. And as long as we don't go down, now I know there are reconstructionists, that's fine. That's not my way, because it's very difficult. If you are, I imagine, a dedicated reconstructionist, you're going to find very little on which to reconstruct, other than from the stories. And again, they're stories. So who knows? Okay, so Gabriella says, thank you. Doctrine is all teachings and beliefs. Dogma is core beliefs. Okay, well, we don't have, even within the order, we have teachings, but not in a dogmatic thing. We honor nature and we have values that we share rather than telling people how to be. We talk about ethics, we talk about responsibility, our own internal moral compass, but we don't tell people how they should live their lives. But the teaching or the lessons in the course offer a framework for us to do our own spiritual practice, because we have members, from all spiritual paths and none. So it's up to each individual to find their own way and create their own path from the scaffold that they're given, and then make use of it themselves.
Yeah. No bad is I'm really like the organization. It's a kind of a non-organization organization.
Yes.
But it's like especially with the hearth and everything that we have, like you realize there's a lot of resources and a lot of there's an infrastructure there that has been built over time, and it connects people, and you can find there's a lot of stuff I didn't even know. And I can find resources and connect with people and all of that, So it's an organization that has thrived over time, and like you say, it's a framework. There's a leadership, but it's very kind of almost, I don't know, non-leadership leadership. It's like a facilitation leadership or something, like it's nice to have you like a chief and sort of, other Pendragons and things. So it's nice to have that structure, but it's really, it's the members that make it up, so there's a community involved. It's, and I think that's what is, makes it different. We're not different, I guess. Makes it, you're able to have a larger community over a larger it's all over the world, really, a
Yeah.
worldwide community. And we can link to that. And we're all linked together by the same sort of teachings and ideas. So it struck me a while ago. There's a thing in Buddhism that's called, I think it's like the 3 jewels of Buddhism or something. It's like, so there's the Buddha, which also is the teacher. There's the Sangha. No, is it Dharma? Dharma is the teaching, and the Sangha is the community. And so I thought, well, there's a parallel there with Obad, right? So we don't have like a Buddha, so to speak, but we have teachers, or you might say our Buddha is nature. You know, nature is our Buddha. And then we have the gurus, which is the teaching, and then we have the community, and the 3 kind of work together to create this, you know, spiritual entity, you might say.
Absolutely. Someone says, Sai says, talking about concerned about druids using tarot because ancient druids didn't use tarot, and says the trust in God nature is great, but to trust man-made luck and tarot cards departs from the rules of real druidry, in my opinion. But tarot cards aren't. They're used as a device to reflect on. It's not about believing everything the tarot says. It's a useful tool. What does Pat say? A useful tool for insight, especially when used with a bit of yoga conjunction. Yeah, it's not, people don't worship tarot and they don't believe everything they read, but it is there as a useful tool to help you reflect on what's going on in your life, or if you have a particular question.
Yeah, well, it's a divination tool, and druids, ancient druids, use divination, and for that they use like bones and things that were thrown into the fires, or some more gruesome things too. But but they
and the birds,
the bird flight, and so there's different kinds of divination tools, and that's just one of them. So so I think that's in alignment with kind of even ancient druid practice. So. It's just a newer version and a new kind of a tool that we use. So, but I think, you know, the principle that, you know, use what is valuable to you and discard what's not, right? That's part of Obad's way, you know, use this, like if this resonates with you, that's great. If it doesn't, then move on. Maybe later it will or something. So he had all this kind of freedom to come in and out and rediscover, because once in a while I'll still pull out gurus and reread them, you know. I think I should, you know. Oh, I forgot about that bit, you know. Oh, I'd like to try that, you know. So it's still a wealth of information and inspiration for you to develop your spiritual practice. So I kind of think of religion as institutionalized spirituality. So the spirituality was there, and then they had to put an institution around it, and that's what wrecks it. All institutions become corrupt over time. And I think that, like, Obad doesn't really lend itself to this. It's not institutionalized. It's not an institutionalized spirituality. It gives a lot of control and power to the individual to decide how they use the teachings or how it will work in their life, you know. So
I think that's its strength. I think that's its strength. And I think that's why it's such a big order, because it allows that freedom to people. You know, the support is there, but then you are independent. And I think for many, many people, that is one of the keys, is that people will have left and been scarred by previous spiritual paths they've been on, and then find Obad as a place. Either they can reject their previous one and say, I have found Druidry and I'm found my home. And others go, no, I found Druidry and I want to weave in my other spirituality in with it. And that freedom is there. And that is really, really beautiful, because when we have so much fundamentalism, you know, rising again, that it's lovely to have this balance of, it's not, you know, being a counter fundamentalism, but it's like, no, you are free to explore this in your own way and make sense of it for yourself. You know, it's a gift.
Yeah, it truly is. So I've always been interested, though, in that intersection between the transition from Druidry to Christianity, especially in Ireland. What was fascinating about Ireland is that, like, Europe was conquered, and the Romans made a a point of getting rid of the Druids because they were, well, they represented a lot of power in society and decision making and things like that. But Ireland wasn't. It was converted. And so I always wonder about that period. My pet theory is that at that point, the Druids had become corrupted because there has to be a reason for them to flee over to something else. And so there must have been a readiness to get rid of the Druids in order for, so they might have become institutionalized. Maybe the kings got fed up of having to, be second in line to the Druids to talk and things like that, So, and I think in the old stories, it was like a lot of the converts to Christianity were the Druids themselves, like that Patrick converted the Druids. And so I always wondered what happened, in that era. And I was kind of fascinated with Columcille. We went to Ireland for about a month back in 2005. And that was kind of a magical trip too. And one of our favorite places was Glen Columcille. And that's in County, what is it, the north? Donegal. That's it, Donegal, yeah. And then, it's interesting because he came from a family, like there were Druids in his family, and he had the expression, "Christ is my Druid." And he got kind of kicked out, I think, because he did something wrong. He copied some manuscript or something he was supposed to, ended up in Iona, and which was also the Isle of the Druids, be known as that, right? Yeah. Before. And so they think there's sort of a confluence between Druids and Christians, or at least that kind of Christians. And it probably wasn't the common people that were they converted the aristocracy and all of that sort of thing, So anyway, I find that kind of, it's a crossover integration. I find that period kind of fascinating about what was going on there and what the dialogue, the interchange between those two groups were. So, and it's interesting, a couple of weeks ago, I was just scanning YouTube and I came across a documentary about the Druids, and they were doing, and this was done in Ireland, and they were doing I think they were investigating, but one of the things was the use of the mistletoe, that there was documented how they cut the mistletoe down, and there were you, Eimear, as part of that.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see you, but it was good. But, and they said, they said the most Druids in the world are in Ireland, and I think they said, here's Eimear, head of the Druids of Ireland, and I thought, you missed an opportunity, because you could have corrected them, and instead of saying head of you should have said you were queen of the Druids of Ireland. That would have a pizzazz to it, that would have had some power. As a matter of fact, why be a chosen chief? You could be queen. Why not change as queen of Obod?
Titles, smitles, doesn't matter. I know what I am on the inside. It doesn't matter. And I live in 3 castles, so I know I am the queen of where I live.
Oh, there you go. Well, as long as you know it, you don't even have to say. As long as you know it,
I know. I don't have to tell anybody. That was a French, a German crew, and it was really interesting.
It was a good documentary. Yeah,
it was, because I only saw the German. I didn't. It wasn't. There was no English subtitles on it. The version I got, but when they were, where was it? It might have been Czech Republic. They they had goldsmiths, and they were finding. Excuse me, Pat Booker, only small people need big titles. I'm only small on the outside. Just correction. I have actually had people write to me and go, Eimear, Queen of the Druids. It gets to me. Kilkenny, Ireland.
Somebody was king of the Druids. Who was it king of the witches? Probably both. Was it Arthur Pendragon? Was he king of the Druids, or I don't know. Somebody was playing king of the Druids. I don't know.
Anyway, so they were looking at, this claim that the Druids used golden sickles to cut, but because gold can't cut. So what it was they worked with bronze, which is gold color. So they see in the film where they make a bronze sickle, and then that cuts. Or they saw that, said, oh my God, they're golden sickles. Or druids told whoever, whatever writer was, to take the piss and say, oh yeah, yeah, we get up there when the moon is full or whatever it is, and we use golden sickles because we're magical. Who knows? It's really, really interesting. King Alex Gardner was king of the witches.
I was wondering if it was Gardner, king of the witches.
Who's Alex Gardner? There's Gerald Gardner, Alec. I don't know which one.
No, it'd be Gerald Gardner. It's Alex. Who's the other one? Alex. He was Alexandrian Wicca.
Yeah. Okay, she's gotten the two mixed up, or no, what is it? Conflated, mixed up. Yeah. So yes, Morgan says it was an art documentary. That's ARTE. That was the company, and I think that was in 2020. Alexander's. Thank you.
That's it, Alexander's.
So that film was made during COVID. In between lockdowns. I think that's what happened in 2020. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting. If they can have a king of the witches, we could have a queen of the druids, I think.
Titles. They're not important, but anyway, or not important to me. People get too caught up in their titles, and then we end up with lots of problems with that.
Yes, of course. I'm just kidding, of course.
Anyway, I don't mind. I don't. But so, how do you?
You're frozen.
How do you weave the? I'm back. Can anyone see me?
Okay.
Am I back? Can you see me now?
For the moment.
Okay. How do you weave? Okay. So I'll say quickly, and then you start talking quickly to keep it going. How do you weave your psychology, your Jungian psychology, your psychotherapy with druidry? Or where do you see them meeting?
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist. That's one of the things I do in my psychotherapy. It's the main thing that I do, actually. And actually, hypnosis is very magical, really. I mean, you're doing a lot of talking. It's like casting a spell, you might want to say. You've got using a lot of words, but I use a lot of metaphors, nature metaphors, and I match it with, like, for example, we're just coming into the spring. And so I might use for somebody was just here, that was, they want to move forward in their life and they need healing. And so I'll use a spring metaphor in hypnosis about, and I'll talk about, at this time of year with the growing light and the growing warmth, and it melts the snow, and the snow feeds all of the hidden life underneath. And even though it's like brown and dead looking, underneath it is life. And as you add warmth and light, then the little shoots start to press out up through the ground. And at first they're very fragile, but as you add warmth and light, they grow stronger and they grow up to the light, and then they blossom out into beautiful flowers. And so what was all dead was just beautiful gardens. And so this is the healing time, this is the healing time, and it's unstoppable. The growth of the light is unstoppable. And this is a new season. You can't stop the new season from arriving, and you need to leave the stuff from the old season behind and embrace the new season. And this is where everything's healing in this time of life, time of the world, right? So I might encourage them to, plant a garden in the place. Imagine beautiful flowers emanating from the place that needs to be healed, and that their life is being pulled forward into a new season of their time, of their life, and to embrace that season and leave the old season behind. So that's an example of how I kind of use the nature metaphors, and I do that for all the. Go ahead.
I think that's quite beautiful because there's a magic in that, and the Irish. I say this very often, but you might not have heard me say it. That the Irish word for magic and druidry is the same. It's driocht, and I've used it. There was a time in my practice when I used hypnosis. I use it more on myself than with clients, but I think that is beautiful, that, that this is the healing time. I mean, what a beautiful suggestion.
Mhm.
And to use the metaphor of, the dead plants, but the new shoots coming up and things being renewed. I mean, that's magic. And
Yes.
also true. It's suggestive that it's actually implanting a seed thought in somebody's mind that actually is
It,
true and possible
yeah.
and full of potential, um, without being
And
manipulative.
yeah, and so a lot of hypnosis is done like through indirect suggestions like that. It's not telling them, "Oh, you're going to
No,
heal and get better," and it's anything like that, right? It's telling a story essentially, but it's creating word pictures and images. So you're creating they can imagine the sun and the plants growing and the beautiful gardens and the flowers, right? And so all of these is a different way to convey information to your subconscious, and
yeah,
it understands that because that's how dreams work, right? We dream in imagery and metaphors. And so I sometimes describe hypnosis as a reverse dream. So with a dream, we're creating it within, we're digesting and kind of making sense of our world through the imagery and metaphors that we create in our dreams. In hypnosis, you're in a relaxed state and you're in a receptive state, and you're feeding these images, these like dreamlike images. So it's like I'm giving you a dream. And then and because we have a context of, what are we telling you, what's the purpose of the hypnosis and why you're here. And so all of those are interpreted. It goes right past the critical factor, like what they call the critical faculty, when you analyze things to death. You just feel like, oh, he's saying about beautiful gardens and stories, right? So you're not thinking that you're actually getting a suggestion, just following along, but your mind knows how to interpret. It's much more powerful because it resonates with that, and says it'll go, yeah, and just kind of get that, yeah, feeling of inspiration, and you can feel the growth happening and the heal, and this is healing and every renewal. So anyway, I'm casting spells. I'm casting magical spells in my psychotherapy with
but
clients. And go
and
ahead.
yeah, and that is so beautiful. And when I describe Druidry as, a metaphor for when for our lives, or we look to the seasons and the landscape as a metaphor, and that, when our inner world is in sync with what's happening in the outer world, then that notion of harmony. So giving a suggestion of this is the time for healing and the shoots are coming up, and if this is what's happening, you know, out there anyway, it's like this happens. This isn't a lie. This isn't a
Yeah,
fantasy,
no.
because this does happen, in the world, and it may not happen. So if you're dealing with a client in September, and you're talking about new shoots, because I think we can have any season in our inner world as well, but that
Mhm.
happens all the time. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I use the solstices and the equinoxes. The winter solstice is great because it's like this is the darkest time of the year, and the light is shrinking and it continues to shrink and then it stops. This darkness stops, and then it starts to grow. First, it's just a tiny little spark of growth, and first you don't notice it at all, right? Because it's just like a minute a day, but so you don't notice it, but gradually the light goes stronger and stronger, and it starts to push out the darkness, and then you
And do you
just
know what that's and
go ahead.
that I discovered that this year, that little bit of extra light each day is called a cock step.
Yeah,
Because I was asking, I said,
yeah.
by how long does each day
Hmm.
get longer after the winter solstice? And a friend of mine said that her father always said it gets longer by a cock step. And I think that's just beautiful, because it's a tiny it's a tiny fraction of time. I just want to go. Gabriella says, "I hope my inner world is not synced with the outer world." What I'm talking about is the season, not the wars that and all the abuses and the atrocities that are happening, and the appropriation of land and killing and maiming and
Hmm.
all of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being able to find within all of the shit show that's happening in the world, to actually spot the first shoots and the first flowers, and maybe, you know so we've had the snowdrops are finished now, and the daffodils are coming up, and the crocuses are coming up, and the bluebells, the shoots are up. where and I don't know, with snow, because you have snow,
We're covered in snow still. Yeah.
and I've seen photographs, when the first shoot, they still push through the snow and being able to spot it. I was in the woods 2 days ago, and I was looking at some branch. I was looking for hazel trees, and then I saw a ladybird on a branch. And I don't usually see ladybirds on trees. I usually see them on plants, on green plants. But this was on a naked tree, and I took a
Mm-hmm.
photograph. I was like, "Oh, what a harbinger of hope!" And then I've been looking out for the hazel trees where you see the male catkins, but it's very hard to see the female flowers. But I never saw them for years
Once
and
you have
years
an
and years.
eye for it.
But once I see them, I look every year, and you see one little red flower, and then you see more. That's what I'm talking about. Even though there's a shit show, excuse my language, in the rest of the world, and you're talking about, I watch the news and I get so angry and so upset.
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming back and being able to spot those glimmers of hope and those signs of nature still goes on. And if we can tap into
Yes.
that's a way of grounding and centering ourselves, even though it's not about, I've been accused of bypassing because I'm talking about peace. I'm not. It's like,
No.
I'm well aware of what's happening out there, and it's just coming
Of course.
back to center myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
we
that's
can't
what's
live
really,
in
really
that.
important.
You have to know what's going on, but you can't dwell in it, because then your mind becomes filled with that. That becomes then and that's what fills us with fear. So we live with fearful images. We and we cultivate fearful thoughts and angry thoughts, and
Okay, we're going to.
we need to. Can you hear me? Did you
Yeah.
hear that? Okay. And so we
No,
need to
repeat it.
deliberately cultivate, pardon me? Repeat it?
Repeat it. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Just that, it's important to know what's going on, but you can't live in that because then you're filling your mind and your spirit with fearful images and horror images, and filling your emotions with anger, and you live in that survival kind of way. And it's important for us to be able to turn to beauty and inspiration. We need to cultivate that, that is so we need to fight the overlay of that horror in our minds, and we have to deliberately, more than anything, you have to deliberately make an effort to fill your mind with other kinds of images. I think that's what the hope for the world is that we can't change. We have a system that's falling to bits. Everything's crumbling, right? And you might look at it. This too is a natural process of the world. Things build up and they crumble, they fall down. Everything, like you have a growth, and then the winter it comes down, And there's the two forces of nature's the anabolic and catabolic. The building up and the breaking down. So sometimes things break down, and there's a season of breakdown, and things need to fall apart in order for new growth to happen. And so if we look at that as, this is inevitable. It doesn't matter if somebody else got in instead of Trump, or we voted somebody else different in whatever. The whole system isn't working. They're all the parties are uniparties. They're all controlled by other forces, that have the money and the power. And so, but the thing that will take us out is to a raise of consciousness and to engage the spirit, because we have to have a new way of seeing the world. We have to visualize a new world, just like in hypnosis, I get people to visualize a new possibility that takes root in the subconscious. And I think if we can find ways to root a new vision and get people not to live in fear, that we need to cultivate beauty and creativity and love and peace. Mm-hmm. These are Druid things, you gave the prayer for peace. That's central to Druidry is peace. And we have the bardic parts of things is important. The arts, these are all part of the higher levels of consciousness. You have to come from a different place to create art and poetry and all the beautiful things that have happened in the world. You have to have a higher state and keep your thoughts at a higher level. You have to keep a view to beauty and hope and sustain that. We need to hold that frequency in the world. And if we can spread that frequency, as I say, that the, you don't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And we can't tweak the world. We're just using the same consciousness. So we have to inspire. We need to bring inspiration into the world. That's Awen. We need to bring the Awen of inspiration into the world. And people need to be inspired out of this, not made afraid out of this. So we have to acknowledge what's going on, but we also have, that's not all that's going on. That's not the only story that's going on in the world. And we need to be story makers and to start to create a new story. I think that's where we as OBOD can be helpful, is to start to put those images of, I think I saw something on Facebook from you the other day where you were saying this prayer for peace, and it's like, oh, well, that's a nice thing to pop up. That's a little thing. That's like that little flower you said that you saw, that you see in the springtime. You need to see those little flowers pop up, and how whether individuals can do that, or that we have a website. We have this great infrastructure. We have websites and we can put messages out into the world. And so if we can be a beacon of hope and inspiration at this time, I think that's really important. I always felt that there was a reason that OBOD came into, and we needed trained druids. We needed to start back then and develop for a time like this. So we have the teaching, we have the community, we have the Dharma, we have the Sangha, we have nature, the spirits of inspiration. We have the Awen. Maybe it's the Buddha as the Awen of inspiration. And so, maybe we need to use that to be a light in the world.
Yeah. And just Nimi says, I saw a caterpillar on the nettles today, and it's that kind of thing. And Suzanne says, I noticed bumblebees on the plum blossom where I work, and they're such messengers of spring. Nimue says, if you need hope, look to nature. And I think, how important that is. Negativity gains controls, nature breeds freedom. That somebody says that Jade came through recently that the system isn't broken, it's that the predominant system is working perfectly, but it doesn't align with the highest and greatest good. Or maybe it's the wrong system. I don't know. But,
well, the institutions are crumbling.
Yeah.
We don't even know what's true anymore. You don't know what's AI. You don't know what's the story to spin. Everybody's kind of control the narrative, which is the narrative is the story, the dominant story. What's the story we're supposed to believe? And so we can help create a new story. What's a new narrative? Because in amongst all the rubble, of the destruction are flowers going forward. And I think in amongst the rubble of this society that we have to look for the flowers, for the little.
That's right. That's right.
Snowdrops that pop up, and the little, what would you call it, the hazel flower or whatever. We have to look for it. And you have to train your eye to see those things. And I think that's what a lot of what we need. We need to train ourselves, our eyes, to see there's another world that is emerging beneath all of this. And maybe some of it has to fall to bits, to rubble. And right. And that's just the process of things. And if you look in history, it's always happened. Civilizations have always fallen to rubble, and something new emerges. So,
that's right.
And we have to be aware. Speaking of narrative, one thing is, like, coming from a background of social psychology, I'm aware. You have to be aware. We have to be very aware of and alert to. And responsible for. We have to take responsibility for knowing the important things in the world. And one of the things to know is that everybody is trying to grab the narrative and train and manipulate you. It is, everybody has a message that they're trying to send. And there's lots of employed psychologists that are there to do that, whether that's in advertising. I mean, advertising is well known, and they use the whole idea of subconscious isn't really talked about anymore in very little in modern day psychology and psychotherapy. It's all cognitive. It's all gone to a cognitive. You have to kind of think and understand things, and you have to change your thinking by, forcing yourself to change and have a new logic. But the whole concept of subconscious is very well known in advertising. They know how to simply do, and all of these things, governments, militaries, everybody is trying to get you to think in a certain way, by what you're presented with, what you're not presented with, and so there's things that like repeated messages, consistent messages that can become, consistently repeated to you with no alternative argument, that this is the way it is, and just keep repeating it, because one of the things in hypnosis is you keep repeating a message, because that's what plants it and gets some change to happen. There's the truth to the more you hear something, the more you start to believe it. So you have to notice who is giving messages, and it's coming from everywhere, like from the social media, all the advertising. They're tracking everything that you're doing. Every time you just scroll, how long do you pause on that little thing? And they're gathering information and learning how to, one, deliver things that you're interested in, but also to shape you, to present other things that lead you in a certain direction. So we really need to understand that. A good fundamental basic thing to know about like social media and shaping our thoughts and behaviors is there's one it's produced by Netflix. It's called the Social Dilemma. I don't know if people have seen that, The Social Dilemma. And it is a kind of a documentary, psycho documentary. It kind of follows the family that, it's a ways old now. I'm not sure how old it is, 5 or 6 years or something like that. But they talk about how people get addicted to cell phones and kids, and it follows this family and how this kid gets addicted to the cell phone. But then interspersed, it talks about these executives from Google and Apple and all these things that talk about what they're doing, right? And they won't let their kids have this stuff because there's something that is, there's a lot of power to manipulate people in a direction. And so if you're not aware of that, you can just be led. So we have to become sovereign in our thinking. You have to be aware of that. We're being persuaded all of the time, and to be literate about that. It's important for us to be literate about that. There's been manipulation all the time, but now with the tools that are here, it's even more imperative that we know about this and to guard against it. So the first step is awareness, because we get led by our unconscious, and when we're not aware of things. Like Jung said, one of the goals of psychotherapy is to make what's unconscious conscious. So you have to bring what's not in your awareness into your awareness, because once you're aware of it, you can't change something you're not aware of. But once you're aware of it, you have the ability to start to apply change, right? So we need to be aware of the things, the dynamics of our society right now. And there's a lot at stake, because, a lot of our freedoms are being deleted, and for the sake of our safety and for your own good and to protect the vulnerable and all of these sorts of things, and I think, we have to be aware our sovereignty is highly important. I mean, the whole thing of freedom and freedom of speech is what enables democracy to happen. And we've only had like a freedom kind of democracy for a short period of time. The default of civilization of the world, we've always lived under an authoritarian regime, and most of the world is still under authoritarian. So this is like a little gem of the flower in this, and it can die if we don't protect things like that. So we have to be aware of what's going on, and this is factual. It isn't even conspiracy stuff. Like, everybody knows it anyway, but you have to be very aware. Then you can start to say, aha, who's sending me a message and why? Why is this message keeping repeated? A lot of messages about who's evil and who's the bad guy. They're trying to justify Iran by saying how evil the regime is and how terrible they do. And well, maybe they do terrible thing. So does the USA, you know? How many
So
countries
we
is
are coming up to an hour, and I know you're.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. I don't know if you can hear me. You're frozen now. Hello? Okay. I don't know if you can hear me. So anyway, I was kind of finishing off there, just to be vigilant, to be aware of the stories and narratives that are being shared in the world, and to create a better vision for the world. Sorry, Eimear, I don't know if you can hear me or not. So, if anybody can hear me. So, I'm just looking at frozen Eimear right now. Hopefully, we'll come back. Ooh. I have no idea if anybody can hear me or see me now. So, I'm not sure what to say other than, you know, we need to be aware. We need to hold a light and a torch. Use your Druid practices that we know just to shine a light just in your corner of the world, and to do that as best you can. And maybe there's opportunities for us to join together to, you know, create sort of more networks or a greater force for good, I guess, in the world. So we're a little over an hour. I'll just wait here. I'll just.
Sorry
Hello.
about that. I went
Okay.
on. Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
I can hear. I have no idea if anybody can hear me after you go. So
I can
don't
hear
know.
you now. I can hear you now. So I
Okay.
just thank you so much. I know you've got clients today. You're in the middle of your working day, and so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to have this chat. So I'm going to let you say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Eimear, and everybody else for having me here. I enjoyed the talk, and we've got a lot. There's lots to talk about. There's lots going on in the world. So anyway, if anything is just to take from this is, you know, try and be a light in the world. You know, don't get overwhelmed by the horror and the negativity. We need to hearken in the new growth that's growing in underneath all of this. So keep your consciousness raised and keep your spirits lifted and focus on beauty and art and spirituality. And I think that's, you know, what best we can do, and support each other and support each other in the community here.
That's right. Don't let tyranny. Yeah. Don't let the tyranny inside our heads. Everybody else. I'll send you to the green room, and we can just have a quick chat before we say goodbye. Finally, say goodbye.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So you're
Goodbye,
saying goodbye
everyone.
to everybody, and
Okay. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
freezing all the time. Okay. So listen. Apologies for. It's damp weather, and that's affecting the signaling. And I shall see you for another Fireside Chat. I hope you get this. I hope you can hear it now. So I'll see you all next week. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, or if you're watching a recording of this Fireside